Pakistan's latest estimated population is 212.619 million, and this makes it the world's sixth most populous country, just behind Indonesia and Brazil. 1/3 of its population is in the youth and adolescent category, with 28% of the population falling in the age bracket of 15 to 29 years. With a median age of 22.7, Pakistan is one of the world's youngest countries. Pakistan faces many developmental challenges. According to UNDP's Human Development Index, Pakistan ranks 150th in the world with an HDI of 0.562. The Global Gender Gap Report 2017 by World Economic Forum placed Pakistan as the second worst country on gender equality. Pakistan ranked 143rd out of 144 countries, worst in the South Asian region, with an average remaining gender gap of 34% as noted by the index. In South Asia, Pakistan has one of the highest infant, neonatal and maternal mortality rates, and the total contraceptive prevalence rate is only 35%, which includes traditional methods as well. Pakistan is the fourth worst country for women according to rankings of the Women, Peace and Security Index. Of the 153 countries ranked for women's inclusion, justice and security, Pakistan was ranked at number 150 with the highest discrimination against women in the world and the lowest financial inclusion. A retrospective review of the 15-year era of Millennium Development Goals reveals several issues and challenges that hindered Pakistan's progress. War against terror started in the region at the heels of MDGs in 2000 and later the devastating earthquake in 2005, as well as countrywide floods in 2010 and again in 2012 impacted the economic stability of the country and hence contributed towards poor progress towards MDGs. After the 18th Amendment in 2010, almost 27 ministries and subjects like health, population, youth, social welfare and women development were devolved to the provinces, and it became a provincial responsibility to legislate on these subjects, develop policies and implementation plans. While the attainment of MDGs was declared a national objective, they were not sufficiently embedded in the public policies and resource allocation processes, both at the national and provincial levels. Less than desired localization of MDGs agenda from government and political stakeholders, in addition to limited coordination between different tiers and sectors of the government, resulted in low awareness of MDGs and consequently lack of effort. After the adoption of the 2030 agenda on September 25th, 2015 by the heads of states of 193 countries under the aegis of United Nations General Assembly, that is the UNGA, attention turned to the national level. Pakistani government at federal and provincial levels, while working with a range of stakeholders, has to date struggled in preparing a framework for implementation that identifies a realistic set of locally appropriate targets and indicators. Nevertheless, it must be appreciated that the government has already commenced the process of implementation by approving the National Priority Framework for SDGs targets and indicators. It has also notified Parliamentary task forces on SDGs to oversee the implementation of National Priority Framework and has also established SDGs units at Planning Commission of Pakistan and at P&D departments at the provincial headquarters. However, despite this, it is feared that there is every likelihood that the country might not be able to produce the committed results before the deadline expires. At the global level, there are approximately 259 indicators, and the government of Pakistan has already selected 69 indicators for their national priority framework. The government has baseline data against 50 of the 69 indicators in National Priority Framework, and some of the priority indicators set the future commitments. For example, Pakistan under SDGs 1 and 2 is committed to end poverty and hunger. As of 2014 and 2015, figures of national baseline suggest that 29.5% people in the country live below the poverty line, while 20% suffer owing to prevalence of undernourishment. Also, national targets indicate that even if everything goes according to plan, from here onwards, 9% of the population will still be living below the poverty line, whereas 5% will still be vulnerable to hunger when the implementation timeframe for SDGs ends in 2030. Baseline for Goal 3, that is good health and well-being, also provides a dismal picture. Maternal mortality ratio stands at 276 deaths per 100,000 live births, and targets for 2030 suggest that it will only come down to 179. Similarly, under 5 mortality rate currently stands at 89 deaths per 1,000 live births and will only be reduced to 40, while adolescent birth rate of 44% will only come down by half even if the national targets are met by the year 2030. There are only 57% children in total, that include 60% boys and 53% girls in the country, who are able to achieve a minimum proficiency level. Thus, it is evident that Pakistan also lags behind in SDG 4, that is inclusive and equitable education, an area where it targets 100% success by the year 2030. Moreover, according to national baseline, only 1.5% of women residing in the country hold managerial positions, while 19.7% have representation in the parliament. Even if national targets are met, Pakistan will still only have 5% of women holding managerial positions and a total of 30% representation in the parliament. Hence, Pakistan has a long way to go before it is able to meet Goal 5 of SDGs, that is gender equality. National baseline also indicates that a lot of work still needs to be done on SDGs 6, 7 and 10, that are clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, and reduced inequalities, as only 36% of the population has access to safely managed drinking water services as compared to the national target for 2030 of 100%. Share of renewable energy in overall energy mix stands at 11%, while the target is 25%. Similarly, the proportion of people living below 50% median income by age, sex, and in case of persons with disabilities amounts to a meager 16.6%, whereas the target is to introduce a decrease in proportion by 40% of the current value. As for Goal 15, that is life on land, national baseline figures suggest that only 5.7% of the area in Pakistan is covered with forests as a proportion of total land area, while the target is to bring the statistic up to only 12% by year 2030. Figures for Goal 16, that is peace, justice and strong institutions, specify 7.8% population as victims of intentional homicide and 32.2% as victims of physical, psychological or sexual violence. Even if national targets are met, the country will still have 3% of population suffering owing to intentional homicide, while 16% will still remain vulnerable to physical, psychological, or sexual violence. National baseline figures for the 17th and the last SDG, that is Partnership for the Goals, also provides a gloomy picture. Total government revenue as a percentage of GDP stands at 11%, with the target being 18%, while proportion of domestic budget funded by domestic taxes is only 56%, whereas the target for 2030 is 80%. Debt services as a proportion of exports of goods and services, on the other hand, is only 45.2%, while the target is to bring it down to 20%. Many civil society organizations, networks, and alliances work for the sensitization and implementation of SDGs in their respective geographic areas and through their thematic priorities. However, Pakistan Development Alliance, that represents 104 national, provincial, and district level organizations from all across the country, is specially focusing on the implementation of SDGs through its interventions while keeping in view the challenges related to governance and accountability. Very recently, Pakistan Development Alliance, with the financial and technical support of VSO Pakistan, conducted a country-wide SDGs gap assessment titled "Where Pakistan Stands on SDGs in 2018." The assessment was carried out with the support of national, provincial, and district level partner organizations. It provided information regarding accomplishments and challenges and also suggested a way forward in the course of implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals in Pakistan. Awaz Foundation Pakistan, Center for Development Services, and Pakistan Development Alliance member organizations, with the support of Voluntary Service Overseas, that is VSO Pakistan, as well as through facilitation from Planning Commission of Pakistan, also carried out the citizens-led mechanism for the voluntary national review of SDGs in 42 districts of the country. It also included Azad Jammu and Kashmir as well as Gilgit-Baltistan. VSO, under its social accountability core approach, partnered with Awaz CDS and PDA in providing technical and financial support for CLM of the VNR process. The findings of Citizens' Review have not only contributed in the national level government report but have also made way for preparation, publication, and dissemination of Citizens' Alternate Report on SDGs for stakeholders concerned. Some major issues and challenges that threaten to sabotage the progress of SDGs in Pakistan include a lack of data availability, a lack of sufficient financial resources to achieve SDGs, a lack of coordination among various departments, ministries, and concerned stakeholders, shrinking civic spaces, and dysfunctional local governments. The members of the Parliament, particularly those involved in SDGs task force, who actually have the power and who are supposed to oversee the implementation plan, require to be capacitated. Governments and stakeholders also need to explore alternative sources of financing that can support public funds. Government should review its legal frameworks and policies towards the civil society and ensure appropriate space for the sector. There is a definite need to prioritize and invest in interventions that can yield multiple dividends like education, health, women and girls empowerment, renewable energy, climate change, and accessible water and sanitation. Affirmative action needs to be taken on behalf of the government to inspire cross-sectoral collaborations in order to share and adapt good experiences, practices, and innovative solutions. All tiers of the government need to establish horizontal and vertical partnerships for coordinated efforts to achieve meaningful progress on sustainable development goals.